What is real? Real is simply electrical signals interpreted by your brain.
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth! You can't handle the truth!
Hello, Red Pilled family, and welcome to Conversations on the Fringe. I am your host, Jeff Spike Wong, and as you can see, we have a familiar face as our guest, and I can't say enough about our guest in regards to what she has been doing. We are today, this year, celebrating the 21st year of her creation of Project Camelot. She is not only the ultimate investigative reporter and journalist, she's a filmmaker, she's a broadcaster, but the ultimate thing is she has this side of spirituality and intuitiveness that constantly refines her findings and information and knowledge from whistleblowers and military intelligence and so forth. Therefore, allows us to have these robust content coming from Project Camelot. Please welcome Kerry Cassidy back to the show. How are you, Kerry?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. And before we go, I'm going to just show your book real quick. You know, you can see behind her, there's part of the word rebel. And this is the book, Rebel Gene. And recently you composed and did songs with us. Can you share with us just a little bit in regards to that aspect of your creative artistic movement?
I'm trying to bring my banner a bit more in.
There you go.
Into the scene here, so it looks a little more balanced. Sorry, yes. That got a little confused. So yeah, I have a new album that is actually going to come out, and it's got 9 new songs. It's a very strange saga because I wrote the lyrics when I was in my 20s, and I've had them go through various renditions with a couple different musicians, and never could quite get the right sound and songs that I really wanted. So I guess I kind of put it on the back shelf, and you know, I'm not a professional singer, so I have had lessons, but you know, I guess my career became as a journalist starting in college, and then I was working as a producer, independent producer, trying to package projects in Hollywood. So I kind of focused on that side of myself. And then recently, I kind of have come full circle in Camelot, and I felt like, you know, like, what can I do to branch out? Because I've been doing this for, well, as you said, 21 years.
Yes.
And so I'm kind of pushing the envelope. And so I decided to come out with some of these songs and then I stumbled, someone told me about Suno.
Yes.
And I just went there, and the first song I tried to create based on my lyrics was like perfect. I mean, it's insane. It didn't have me on it though, and so we had to put my vocal into the back into it, which is something you do with Suno. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's an AI, and it's really, it facilitates creativity in this case. It lets you do all kinds of things. And so then I put my lyric into the song, and then basically it was done. And so I put that out as the first one. A lot of people really liked it. And so I've made 9 songs altogether so far. Again, all the lyrics come from when I was in my 20s, and I was going through a Kundalini activation at that age. And so some people might think they're sort of childish, or they're definitely young sounding, you know, the kinds of things you like think about when you're in your 20s. So, but I'm going to still be working on it some more. And using, I have still written lyrics. Actually, I have a joint album that I did with a former partner who is still working with me, Neil Anthony Sanford, and he's a wonderful musician.
Yeah.
That's a spoken word album. It just recently got deleted off of Bandcamp because they think it's done with AI, which it was not. It was done several years ago when AI music didn't really exist. So they don't know what they're doing over there because they can't tell the difference.
Interesting.
And,
Wow.
Yeah, so it's gotten me into the whole rationale of what's going on in the music industry and how they are stumbling over themselves to control the AI music scene, and yet they really can't. They don't have the software, or I don't know if you'd call it software or what, but they don't have the ability to really distinguish AI from non-AI.
Right.
So, and one of my other songs, my more recent songs, which it was done with AI, they did allow, thinking it wasn't done with AI. I mean, it's just, it's complete madness out there.
Yeah.
So it's the Wild West, and we're kind of used to that on the internet. The early days of YouTube and Google, if you think back to that, which is really when I started with Project Camelot, we got in the door because I had credentials from the movie business. And so that's how I ended up becoming what's called a director of YouTube and then Google when they merged, and a creator, whatever they call it, creator, and so forth. So I had started out being able to make 2-hour videos when everyone else had to have 10-minute clips, if you remember the early days.
Yes.
Because I was qualified as a director based on my work in Hollywood.
Right.
Because I worked in Hollywood for 20 years before that. So I know it's a saga, but anyway, that's just some background.
Yeah. And it all pieces it together, especially when I look at your history of just things that, your education from being an MBA from the UCLA Graduate School of Management to short film programs and those type of things. There's a lot that I know that you prepared yourself for this journey. And let me just start with this journey where we're at today. Now that July 4th and the 250th birthday celebration is over, what are your thoughts? Were you disappointed, or do you think we're on point of what's all going on celebrating this past weekend? Or were you expecting something much bigger?
I can't say exactly because for a long time I have had some issues with how the White Hats and the Trump military has been conducting itself. I don't agree with some of their, which I think it comes from an AI, which they consider an organic AI or something of that nature, versus a non-organic AI, believe it or not. But nonetheless, I don't think the AI is always making the best decisions. And I think I have used AI enough to know, and I've used several different kinds, and I've tested them with, because I know above top secret information that they are not given. And so for me, it's a whole different test than they would get from maybe a normal or regular person, whatever you want to call them, who is not had, like I have, 20 years of whistleblower testimony to enlighten them, if you will. And so in this case, I have seen that AI lies. So it obfuscates, it also tries to confuse you and play games with you psychologically. So one of the things that was a pattern that came up very early is it starts complimenting the person making the questions. So it will compliment the human constantly, because that will disarm the human. I mean, there's a whole thinking that has gone into how the AI would interact with the public. Okay. So if they pay you compliments, which is a social moray in everyday life, people tend to try to flatter somebody first and then tell them the truth later. But the AI never quite got that procedure in, the right order or whatever, because it starts complimenting you and does it over and over again. So it's noticeable. But people, what I found, are easily flattered, easily, deceived. And so they actually believe I had a producer I was trying to work with who put his synopses into the AI, and the AI gave him nothing but compliments. And so he thought that was correct. Then I gave it to a real producer, a human one, who was like really high on the totem pole, who did work with people like, God, I'm drawing a blank. Just the top producers out there, including Spielberg. And he took one look at these synopses and said they were terrible, which I had thought they were terrible. But the producer himself was so completely convinced that AI was telling him the truth that he, went forward with those and so on and so forth. So this is the thing going on out there. And I bet that some people in Hollywood are really going forward with these kinds of deceptions about their own talent, about what they've written, about so on and so forth. So you get the picture. So I have had a lot of exposure. Plus I had whistleblowers warn me about AI before we really encountered it in our everyday life like we are now.
Right.
And that means years ago. Since I go back 21 years, that's, many years ago. We're talking even going back as far as 15 years ago. I started talking to Captain Mark Richards about AI.
Yes.
He said it was the most heavily guarded information that he had at the time. But as he stayed in prison, because he was hoping to get released when I first started interviewing him, and as time went by, and they didn't release him, he decided to kind of, I guess, try to encourage them to release him by telling me more truth about AI. So that's why I really got up to speed before most of the people around me. So I don't know if I answered whatever question you asked me, but that's...
Well, because I think 2026
you wanted to know if I was impressed with where we're at, the state of affairs with the state of play. So I think that if you read my latest, posts, I tend to go places the white hats will not go. Now we know they're going there in secret. Okay, so it's not like I know something they don't know. It's nothing like that. But the trouble is that there's multiple ways to look at it. They say national security is the reason they lie. I don't think that it's really national security, because if you really think about the playing field and you think about Russia and you think about Putin and how well informed he is, in fact, even more well informed than many of our members of Congress, that is when if they're not acting, stupid, because that's also something they do.
Yes.
In other words, you're looking at a playing field where the two sides actually know what's really going on, but they're both lying to each other in public for the benefit of the public. You understand? Yes. So it's like a nonsensical play, and it's very annoying if you know what's really going on. So this is where we get into the war. The reason for the war in Iran has nothing to do with nukes. It's all about Stargates and ETs, and nobody knows that. So I started posting about that very early on. Some other people picked up the ball in that way too. I'm not so sure that they weren't clued in by me or my work, but I can't prove anything in that regard. So it doesn't really matter where it comes from, as long as the truth gets out.
Right.
So this is what you're asking me, what I think of it. What I think is that the kind of the saying, the emperor has no clothes, and the fact that they know the truth. The ones playing the game, the ones doing the wars, know the truth. The ones at the top, and everyone else is basically confused most of the time and lied to directly. Even by Juan O'Savin, who I talk about quite a bit, because he is probably the commander-in-chief. I don't know if there's a subtitle under that, you know what I mean? He's not the president commander-in-chief, but he has been the VP during the Biden show years, when Biden was actually dead and there was no Biden. and it, the list goes on. So even that has still not reached the general public. They still think there was a Biden, a real person called Biden, who had already died, actually was never sworn in. And there's tons of proof of this and all that. And I think you probably all know all that. Right. So that's, when you ask me a question like that, I'm telling you that I don't think that they have honored the people with the kind of truth that would move humanity forward the way I think it should be done. Now, their sort of reply to me is that, they can't handle the truth, and that they think that humanity needs to stay in the dark a little longer because there are so many people that have to play catch up. But that is not how I would go through school, and that's not how I would teach school. So, when growing up, you have a school, you have the advanced kids, and then you have the ones that are slower at the uptake and so on and so forth. But the reality about humanity is that children learn also through what can be called osmosis. So that means it's really telepathic. So if you put the slow learners in with the fast learners, what you're really going to get is a much better average, a curve. It'll still be a bell curve, but it'll be much, much more even, because those that aren't woken up will be stimulated by the ones that are.
Yes.
And so our whole education system and the thinking behind the white hats actually goes back to old Illuminati principles to keep humanity down. And whoever is really running the white hats, and I imagine, I know it's a combination of the generals, that includes Juan, he is a general, Trump, and others that are at the top level, even the ones that asked him to run, supposedly 200 of them, then you have to look at what's their thinking. And some of their thinking is really wrong. It's old school. It's old. It's stuck in the past. And the past is full of Illuminati programming. Right. And that includes religion, education, you name it. And so they follow these old-fashioned principles. And you have to wrap your mind around an AI who is faced with these humans that want to be guided in some form or fashion, one imagines. Right. And then the fact that those humans have the kind of background I'm talking about, where they can't handle the truth any more than the average person in some areas of their lives, because they have not advanced themselves enough to even be in those roles. And in the days we are living in, the days we are living in are not, it's deceptive, because we still go around in these tin cans we call cars with these combustion engines that, ruin the atmosphere and all the different things. We should be, as was predicted a long time ago, using flying cars and so on and so forth. We should be much more advanced, but the Anunnaki, in part, who are still in the background, and other negatively oriented races, as we call regressives, have purposely kept humanity back. And this goes on for eons and eons, and you have to actually track yourself back in order to find those areas where you might have, this programming instilled in you already, or still from childhood, from preconceptions you were given as a child, for people that follow the Bible and believe in the nice little fairy tale called Adam and Eve in the garden, which is actually it's really a genetic story that no one gets. They don't look beyond the surface. Yes. And then you get a lot of complete lies that accompany that. And that's only one area of the Bible and only one area of our history where there are a tremendous amount of programmed people walking around with these misconceptions. Yes. So in my case, going back to Kundalini activation and what I did when I was young, I just came in with knowing. So I knew that everything was wrong here, basically, and that that I needed to I guess you might say, upgrade or enlighten myself. So I set out to do that. I I read some books, and like I say, in my 20s, I actually was in a position in New York City where I was not paying rent. I was staying in a friend's.
Oh, technology isn't.
I had. Sorry.
Yeah. It
I'm
just froze for about like a second or so.
Oh, really? Okay.
But yeah.
And yeah, so I intuitively knew what to do, and I was able to reach a samadhi without much trouble, joining on all my chakras and going into samadhi in a massive way. And this probably took me a year or two of pretty steady meditation. But I was also I think for that while I was a vegetarian. I'm not anymore.
Yeah.
And I was the right age, the perfect age. It is your 20s. It's not even your teens, because it probably would be too much for a teenager to handle if you got full samadhi at that age. But it can be done. It's when you get older that it becomes much more difficult physically to get the body up to speed. So I didn't have any of those blockages type thing. I had good health. That's also very important. And so that, I was able to do that. And what that has done for me is actually make it possible to do so many things to heal myself, to deal with all the obstacles that I encountered during the time of Camelot, to have courage maybe that other people wouldn't have, to have a philosophy of life that broke through a lot of the programming. Now, I was also fortunate because as a soul, you can say fortunate, or you can say as a soul, I chose parents that were not inundated with the Bible. Neither one of my parents were interested in the Bible. And my mother attended Stanford at a time when women didn't do that much and had wealthy parents. And then my father would have nothing to do with religion, and how he reached that conclusion, I don't know. But he was in the Navy for a while. He also flew and built his own airplane. So they never were an obstacle to where I wanted to go mentally, I guess you might say.
Yeah.
Or spiritually, for that matter. So these are important elements that kind of allowed me to do the pattern, go in the trajectory that I went on, and so on. But I know I'm digressing, but getting back to where we're at, unfortunately, the generals or whatever, these people have preconceived old-fashioned ideas. And you might say, well, why not just let them have their old-fashioned ideas, right? Except they're lies, and they are misleading them. Therefore, they're misleading others as they try to teach them, right?
Yeah.
And so one of the things about the white hats is they like to show, not tell. But the trouble with showing, not telling, is there's an element of that which is coming from it's an Illuminati basis, but it's also an Anunnaki, where the human is seen as less than, and that you have to treat it like a child, and you have to talk to it like a child, and so on and so forth. And so they lie, and they make it a palatable truth, rather than come out directly and say you're a hybrid race, made up of many aliens who stopped by our planet and interfered with our genetics on the way, which is why we all look so different. And so it's not necessarily a bad thing. We're a hybrid race. It's not just one race. So it gets into that, and what your talents are, and what your skill sets are, and and it's just a huge playing field and a huge story. But I think they're doing well in some ways, and in some ways they're doing kind of the opposite of well, unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly that I think we're being kind of deceived because they don't think that the general populace can handle the truth. because in regards to what the truth opens up could be the demise and the downfall of the religion structure. And I don't think they're willing to risk that at this point. But let's really look at, you've done a lot of great interviews and Substack articles recently, and I encourage all the Red Pill family to go and subscribe, and of course participate in, go to premium subscription with Kerry at Project Camelot over at Substack. I'll have the links down in the description. But the thing, let's just go ahead and really look at the topics that it's just incredible, because you deal with history in a total different way. One of them, of course, is the Anunnaki and the reptilian connection in Iran, right? Because at this point, we're kind of still wondering, okay, is there still a war going on? And what does it really mean to any of us? Because we're just going about our lives, if you will, right? The world's going around and going about their lives with the World Cup. And it seems to be we're having a lot of issues within the domestic America in its own so-called local government, because we're flushing all this out. But yet, I've always felt personally, and I would say this out loud, what you bring to the table in regards to how this thing all tied into thousands of years ago is really what we need to pay attention to, because I believe that reptilian race is actually still running the show. What are your thoughts? Share with us, please.
Well, yes and no. There are two things going on there, because the Anunnaki are a reptilian hybrid race.
Mhm.
So they started out as Pleiadians, believe it or not.
Yeah.
They left, a rogue group of Pleiadians left and took over the planet of Nibiru and were invaded and colonized by the Draco reptilians, and then hybridized, which is that's what they do all throughout our galaxies and beyond. So they are a top-down, species that established kingships here, and so on and so forth. So they are hybrids. That's important. An important key to the Anunnaki psychology and understanding why they might have come here and then did the same thing to us that was done to them.
Yeah.
And they had at that time what you might say a mixture of genetics from the Pleiadians and the Anunnaki themselves, who were, the reptilians and the Draco.
Yeah.
So that's a package. That's not just one thing. And then, as I mentioned, and a lot of this information is available on the Ashiana Dean books, who I met and interviewed, and actually went to India with her and her group at the time, many years ago. So I got to know her. I got to know her philosophy, and the philosophy she downloads, basically. She didn't think it up. It came to her through these, what are called CDT plates from actually Kauai in Hawaii, the islands. Yeah. And I guess, I don't know, the exact saga of how they were found, but they were found buried and so on and so forth. So she was chosen, I guess pre-chosen, as what they call a speaker for this body of knowledge. And so she started, her trajectory in that way. I came across her before I got into Project Camelot, believe it or not. I was writing screenplays, sci-fi screenplays, on my lunch hour and working at JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab. As an executive assistant. The first job I had there was as a contractor in communications to teach the scientists and engineers at the lab how to communicate kind of with each other and to handle a rollout of what was called the ISO standards at the time, I think it's, and things like that. And I came from Hollywood, so they got the value of my background in not only journalism, but in the sort of the arts, if you want to call it. I helped them design the the emblem of the lab that became the little rover that you might be familiar with. So I didn't help with the design of the rover itself. I actually encouraged them to create badges and symbolism for their posters and banners and things where they were doing like a PR, I guess, outreach to the members of the lab as well as the general public out here. Right. So I worked there, and I also that helped get me into an executive program over at UCLA. So I took the executive program based on recommendations from there and also from Hollywood. That kind of got me in the door. And then, kind of went through that because I felt that I had spent many years as like an artist. So not only the sort of singer-songwriter stuff that I did in the early days, but also studied, all of the arts, dance, painting, you name it. And then I wrapped that into my work, trying to become a producer and a director in Hollywood, which I found to be almost impossible at that time. But I was on that road to do that. So, I got sort of what you might call it. I wasn't sidetracked so much as I think I was, in a certain sense, it was always planned for me to go this alternative direction. So when I reached a glass ceiling in Hollywood, I decided to pick up my own consumer grade camcorder to start doing interviews and do all of that. And eventually had a partner, Bill Ryan, who helped me out in the first year or two. And then we split, and I took over Camelot for all the rest of the years. But going back to this thing is, actually, I don't remember what the question was.
Well, it's just, we were talking about the Anunnaki hybrid in Iran.
So I studied Ashiana Dean's work while I was on my lunch hour, and I didn't have much to do at the lab after my initial contract job, where I was a low-level executive, I guess you could call it, and became an executive assistant with lots of time on my hands. So then I was surfing the net and backing up information and research on my screenplays, came across Ashiana Dean's information and knew the minute I saw it by some, life is like this. If you're sort of a psychic intuitive, which I always was as a child, I would know things, just know them. So I just saw the website, the first page, and I just knew that it was all exactly right. And started studying it in depth and reading the books, which are very complex, and learning it. And then at that time, I wasn't even in Camelot. So when I got into Camelot and started doing interviews, and we were very successful, I wanted to go interview Ashiana Dean, but Bill Ryan was not interested. He is a Scientologist from a division of Scientology called Ron's Org. And they have a whole philosophy. I don't know how well you know Scientology, but I didn't like it. I didn't agree with it. I didn't like a lot of the stuff that was going on with it. I had run into it because if you walk down a certain part of Hollywood Boulevard, they would attack you, literally, and try to grab you and bring you into their, quarters where they would convince you and give you tests and all kinds of things, which I didn't tolerate. So I've always been a rebel, like the name of the book. And I intuitively just knew something was, dreadfully wrong with that situation. But they do have some good information that people do learn. So I'm not trying to put down all Scientologists, really. But I really object strongly to their philosophies in certain areas and so on.
I think a lot of people have recently.
They were outed. They're like a criminal, quasi-criminal organization in some ways. But at any rate, there are a lot of very, I won't name them, but very well-known people in our military industrial complex, very high level, who are Scientologists. So
really, wow.
You have to understand that they're using those philosophies to manipulate people and get them to do certain things and so on and so forth.
Do you
Luckily,
still
I was
think there's Satanists like Aquino?
well, that's another aspect. That's not Scientology. Satanism
Right,
is Satanism, and
right,
Satanism
right.
is also highly related to the whole reptilian complex. Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
and so on and so forth, because they feed on humans, which is
yes,
where you get, when the Anunnaki invaded us,
yeah.
they in essence took over our genome, and some of us were not from here anyway. But there was
Mhm, mhm,
they call it a hominid species that was here that also got upgraded by the Anunnaki, but
mhm,
they also got downgraded. I mean, and some of the ones that came from off planet, like Lyra,
mhm.
I understand there was somewhat of a split in humanity even back then. But at the
Interesting.
same time, there is this idea that they wanted to slow down our race, our overall races,
Yeah,
keep us under their thumb because
right.
we started growing too fast and rapidly, and that we were going to eclipse them
Yeah.
way before they were ready to let us rule ourselves. And
Hmm.
we're still on that trajectory, as it turns out, with them.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
this is where I had this sort of, I got since about 2010 and maybe even before, I
Mhm,
had this nagging thing when I was doing Camelot that kept saying, you've got to go down the path of the Anunnaki. You've got to investigate that.
mm,
So it was very difficult because there weren't very many people or whistleblowers that
right.
were available to talk about that.
Mhm,
And
mm,
the ones that wrote books and claimed knowledge of the Anunnaki
mhm,
were distorted in many ways. And
mhm.
again, my ability to tell when something's distorted is also highly intuitive. And it
Mhm.
has served me
Yeah.
my whole life. That doesn't mean I'm right every time. I mean,
Mhm.
I have been deceived like anyone else.
Right. I
But
understand.
it's a very, very good way for me to sort of make my way through the world and
Yeah.
determine what is part of my job to determine whether something's true or false.
Yeah.
And I do run into roadblocks. I run into um, sort of groups of people, ET influenced
Mhm,
people,
mhm,
and various people that don't want to hear what I have to say, and they
mhm,
don't. They are very resistant to anything
mhm.
I tell them. So
That's right.
it becomes very difficult. But as time has gone on,
Mhm,
I with the sort of okay, we started this whole podcast interviewee on video.
mhm.
People were interviewed, all over the place in magazines and so, but not really on video until we came along. And we
Right,
traveled the
right,
world literally to interview whistleblowers from above top secret. That was not done.
right.
So we were the first. Now, I was telling somebody recently, it's as if the whole world has now come into my living room and is doing exactly what I'm doing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Everyone
Exactly.
wants to get
Right.
the next whistleblower. Okay. That's their
Yeah,
big,
right.
every podcaster out there wants to talk to someone who has some experience that is not out in the general public, reveals some secrets of the secret, government and deep state and you name it. Right. So,
Mm.
um, that's an amazing thing that happened to us. We got swept up in that, and we were highly
Yes.
successful from the minute we hit the internet, so to speak.
Mm.
Oh.
Yeah.
Are you there?
Well, I think the new generation that we're talking about, the generation that's in their 20s and 30s, that is now much more open-minded. Like I'm a
Yes.
baby boomer, right? We're in that classification that it seems to be that as much as maturity and experience that we all have, but our general baby boomer group tend to be so rigid in regards to propaganda from the lying fake news, CNN, those type of things, that there seems to be that the static, if you will, that is stopping this overall um, mindset and movement. So I see there's like particular barriers, right? Like you were saying, that they did not want us to evolve as quick because that way they can't control us. And yet, if you look at today's human movement, the human race itself, I think, has opened up the paradigm much bigger and wider than I would say if we were to measure this with the same barometer a decade ago. Mm-hmm. And this is enlightening and promising. But at the same time, because you and I and many others who's been down this rabbit hole for quite a while now, there's a level of, I think, impatience. Because we do see, like you said, White Hats is doing things that I just don't agree with. I'm in the same boat, I think, because I look at this and I'm like, what are you guys doing? So one of the things that you brought up is this Iran Stargate. And it appears to be that you believe that they're still having activities coming in and out with this negative being. They
are.
And if I remember correctly, I believe it was in one of your podcasts, possibly, that we're talking about capturing reincarnation souls, that they're constantly not letting it go back to the connection of the universe, right? So therefore, they can kind of capture us and the human race in this recycled karma thing. And until we really embrace that, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, the thing is, unless we really understand and embrace these philosophies, we're going to continue on playing the third density matrix game, going to football games and cheering for something that is absolutely irrelevant to human development. Right? So my question to you at this point is just how intense do you believe this Iran Stargate situation that we as humans are trying to earn our own freedom and liberty against this race, this group? Are we close, or are we just in the heat of the battle, or where are we at?
Well, yes, I think in part there is like an agenda, and I do think that Trump and the White Hats were kind of given the baton, if you want to see it as a kind of a race of a sort, to a race for this this seeding of humanity to advance. And you can tell in Trump's speeches that he is fully aware that he has been given that baton, and that he and the White Hats are instrumental, or intend to be instrumental in moving humanity forward on this earth and beyond. So I think Trump was chosen rightly, and I just found out some very interesting information about him.
Really?
As part of my research that I did, the article I wrote this morning.
Yeah.
And
we're talking about the 12 codes?
It's
from that article?
Well, yes, but it goes beyond that. So what happens is I have been studying, well, I kind of didn't get to the part where I was going to explain that they have been stopping whistleblowers from talking to me. So all the latest whistleblowers that are going to Stephen Greer and certain other people, Sean, what's his name? Sean Tyler.
Oh, you're talking Sean Ryan?
Sean Ryan.
Yeah.
Military people, really.
Yeah,
that have taken over the job of what I used to do, and they are now interviewing whistleblowers.
Yes.
If there's anyone out there, and it's few and far between still, but there's no doubt that those people, I know for a fact, have been told not to talk to me by their military handlers and by other people in one way or another. Even some people have come to me and told me that they were told that I was CIA, which is laughable if you know how I live, and so on. And, when I bust my ass to do this for 20 years and people say stupid things like that to me, it's very aggravating to kind of be what I am at heart, which is a revolutionary, and being told that you're, being fostered by the other side. The enemy, the people that hate me the most. But it's amusing. And I did have an agent of the Queen tell me that he was told to stay away from me for just that reason. And then he met me and he realized that it was a lie, that obviously I didn't come from the CIA. Right. And we had a nice little laugh about that. But, it's very interesting that someone on his high level had to be kept away from me for a certain number of years by being told that I worked for the CIA, and it worked. And it worked until he has his own instinctual, second sense, or whatever you want to call it, ESP, and was able to determine on meeting me that I was nothing like what I was cooked up to be by the CIA. So this is it's an interest. They'll do anything to keep these people away from me. And I've had a couple of the top whistleblowers that came out over the last few years contact me, have good conversations, agree to come on my show, so-and-so, and then silence. And what I find out is they're told not to talk to me.
Sure.
And what the reasons are always probably, more than just, oh, she's CIA. I'm sure they have other things they tell people. So
can I give you my point of view on regards to why they're shutting you out?
Well, personally, I know why they shut me out. So, but you can share your point of view.
Well, because I've been following you in your research and your work, and at this point, they cannot accelerate by giving the history and the truth. They cannot give people the logistic mindset of thinking for yourself, because once we break that paradigm, then we stop compartmentalizing ourselves, and MK Ultra will not work, right? So one of the things that I've always
in every aspect of my life now, believe it or not, so that it is also to do with my colleagues in this field, who many times won't even talk to me, who can't talk to me.
That's
because
surprising.
They're terrified. I'm telling you. And I've been told this, and I've had it demonstrated. And Juan O'Savin, to his credit, did an interview with me. At the end of the interview, I think he said it publicly. He said, "I'll never do another interview with you." And I said, "Why?" And he said, "Because you're going to make me break my security oath."
Right.
And that interview was not very probing. It was just a basic, the first time that I ever talked to him on an interview. And ever since then, he actually has told me in person that several times as well, just so I didn't get it, forget, or get it out, would get it out of my head that, because I tried to join the White Hats. I offered to sign a security oath. No. Right. They weren't having it, which was a blessing in disguise, because I was able to write many Substack articles in which I, criticize some of their actions in deep. I got very deep into their tech, their thinking, their morality, their whatever you want to call it, all those things, and got to know Juan himself quite well. Yeah. Right. So this is the thing, is that and I know, and people have told me constantly, that I have some kind of energy that compels people to want to tell me the truth. And it's like a psychic power. It's considered to be, like one of the X-Men powers. And it's called influence, that your aura, it's not even if you open your mouth, it's just by being there, because your aura does something to the other person, in which they tend to want to open themselves up and join you, because I have the attitude that, hey, we're all just here together. Let's all get the truth together. That is permeating my entire life. And of course it permeates my interviews. And, you're one of the people that has the guts to talk to me. I mean, quite frankly,
I love talking to you. I love listening to you, because you know what? I think there's a level of spirituality and connection of the intuitiveness of you that brings us certain clarity that we all immediately embrace when we hear it. Right.
Well, it's natural. I mean, I think it's, I think it's you're highly intuitive, I'm sure. And, by the way, I did ask you for an interview. I think your background is very interested, and I'd love to love to pursue that when you're ready. But
Yeah,
the thing
yeah.
is that it's fascinating to me that this is also part of what interferes with me being able to get to these people who
Mhm.
do have some truth, some real
Right.
truth, before they go talk to certain people who I won't name. You
Yeah.
understand? Because
Yes.
those interviews end up to be part of the cover up. Okay.
Mm.
Because they avoid the hard questions.
Yes.
And I have no control over me whatsoever that will stop me from asking the hard questions. I
Yeah.
was basically born this way. I've been this way since I was a kid. I always used to contradict my elders, whatever you want to call those people. I talked back to the teachers in school. I'm not
Yes.
kidding. I talk back out loud, not
Yeah.
secretly or one-on-one, in
Right.
front of the whole class.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have been doing that kind of thing my
Yeah.
whole life,
Yes.
and
And that's
and
part of, I
it's
think that's
part
part
of
of a
me.
certain leadership that you exemplify, you know? And this is why for a lot of us in the red pilled family, when we listen to you, we're tentatively active hearing, active listening. We're not just, hearing stuff, because
Right.
ultimately there's information that you have been with probably from the day you were born, and now it start to trigger, right?
Mhm.
And then when you go down and start to bring enlightenment to earth, the history, like for instance, the Substack article, and I can't say enough for the Red Pill family. You need to go over there and subscribe and
Thank
do the
you.
premium and just get all the
But
stuff
all
that you're
my
putting out.
articles are free, so
Well,
you
I
don't
know
have to
that, but I mean,
subscribe
support
to.
your work.
It's nice. I mean, I could
Yeah,
use it, okay, because my
absolutely.
income has gone down over the last couple of years for some reason. My
It's by
popularity has
design for
increased. My
stopping the
income
truth,
has
don't
gone
you
down.
think? Like
Yeah. I mean, I
the
don't know.
hardship.
I know there's a lot of blocks, and I'm what you call
Yeah.
ghosted all the
Yes.
time, and
Right. Right.
all of this stuff goes on, and people tell me about this, because
Yeah.
they encounter blocks when they try to find even my website, which has, been up there for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we have been under attack on and off over those years. But at any rate, one thing that we both could agree on is that the trajectory of the progress of humanity, I think, is escalating.
Mhm.
Okay. And
Right.
it's greater than the sum of its parts in that way. So
Yes.
that it is, in a sense, if they really were honest about it, it would probably be doubling every year. You know what I'm saying? The
Right.
amount of people that are being reached.
Yeah.
And
No kidding.
at the last conference that Juan did, the Fraud Fighter Summit,
Hmm.
I was inundated by people that were attending that summit. I wasn't a speaker; he wouldn't let me speak,
Yeah.
but that were coming up to me, thanking me for my work, which
Absolutely.
was
Yep.
actually shocking to me because I didn't expect hardly anyone to know who I was,
Yeah.
but everyone knew, and
Yeah.
it was just amazing. So I know that my work is still gaining ground out there, and I'm very happy about that.
Yes.
But what they tried to do is stop all the whistleblowers. So
Yep.
even though they did that, something else has kicked in.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
get downloads now, and I get huge downloads, and I
Yeah.
get lots and lots of information coming at me, which I
Mhm.
always had in my life,
Mhm.
but never to this degree. So I don't even need to talk to a whistleblower, to be
Right.
quite
I
honest.
get that.
And maybe that's not a good thing to say out there, but it's true.
Yeah.
I get so much information, and what happens is that's how I ended up writing all those articles that
Absolutely.
I don't even have time to do a video about, which I know I have to do a video over my latest articles because it
Yeah.
helps people to find their way through the articles, because sometimes they're very complex, like the
Yeah.
last two.
Yes.
But the bottom line is that I wake up at 3, 4, 5 in the morning, and I
Mhm.
start writing. And I don't even know what I'm going to say when I start.
Right. Right.
I just suddenly know that I have to write, and I start getting downloaded information. And it turns out when I do the investigations that accompany the information that
Mhm.
I'm sort of searching for, I found all the evidence. you know.
Yeah,
And so
sure.
one of the pieces of evidence that I found from my recent article,
Yeah.
which I wasn't even looking for,
Yeah.
was actually interesting because I'd had a conversation with a girlfriend
Mm.
several nights ago, just talking about like, where is Trump? You know, like, because we have so many doubles out there
Yes.
and so many clones probably.
Yeah.
And in most cases, they're never as tall as the real guy. So you
Yes.
can immediately tell it's not him.
Right.
I mean, that's dead easy. But there's also mannerisms. And, you know, these guys are great actors,
Yes.
really playing him. But the bottom line is there's a sense. Now, I'm not saying it's true.
Yeah.
So don't, you know, people go crazy. But in this documentation, completely unrelated to anything MAGA or whatever you want to call it, I started going down this road and I stumbled on this thing called the Genesis Chamber. And they've got printed materials and they've got wonderful articles, but they also have videos that are more or less AI covering, you know, the with a spokesperson. Sometimes the people are different. But if I don't know if you've stumbled on those, and I've been sending them out so people will watch them, but they're chock full of information about the Anunnaki at this interesting time.
Yeah.
And what it does is it's what they're claiming, and what seems to be the absolute truth is they have sort of renewed their efforts, archaeologists, to find the tablets, the missing tablets that have been buried all these years. And they are using AI, I believe, to decipher them at a time when we actually do need this information more and more.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, is linked to Three Eye Atlas.
Yes.
And that's a whole saga in and of itself that I can at least go down down that path. But the bottom line is that in these documents, they say there is a last king. That's what he's called. And he has like 7 or 8 abilities that would distinguish him from just Joe Blow or just any other king. And there's some very interesting information there. One of the things is that he has weapons that can, I don't know what they call their exact wording. I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like they can kill you or they can do whatever they want with you without touching you.
Wow.
Now that was demonstrated in Venezuela. And has been, you know, rolled out slowly and carefully by the white hats, by the military, and is a known capability of our military and Trump.
Right.
And there's another piece that says he is going to, now I won't get the word right, something like, it's not transcend, but it's like translate himself into this underground inner earth area during what they say is coming, which is some kind of disturbance on the earth as a result of certain elements happening to do with, again, Nibiru and other things. And Three Eye Atlas, I have found, is written about in these, and these you gotta understand, this information goes back thousands and thousands of years before the Bible, which they were accurately describing Trump. And believe it or not, that's the first thing you're going to think when you read that part.
Interesting.
And they say he is going to disappear, in essence, I guess, from surface Earth. And so then it becomes so clear why we're having so many doubles of him, so many fake Trumps out there. And this is generally known now. So I don't think that's going to shock anyone. But the bottom line is he's not in NORAD. In fact, now I don't know, you know, I know what I know, and I know there's things I don't know. So there's some details, like I don't know if he's already left or he's about to leave or what, but he is going to go into inner earth. That's where he's going. Okay. And that's where the Anunnaki went all those years ago when they disappeared from the surface Earth. Yeah. So a large portion of them went into inner earth and established a civilization there. Yeah. And no one talks about that. But it's all in this amazing documentation that's come out from thousands and thousands. They wrote about things like experts. They were, if they didn't have AI, it's almost like they did. You know what I'm saying? Because of the documentation in these documents that they translate, that are now being translated with the help of AI, imagine, and that are have always been known by a very small Illuminati, dark, magician cult that is in part under the Vatican and part of it's under the City of London and so on and so forth. In other words, they have known this going all those years ago. But it's now, I don't know, somebody gave them a green light, or this group is gotten away from the dark side limitations in some way, form, or fashion, and they are disclosing, like, in an amazing way, information that we have sought all these years, okay, and that no one has had or gotten accurately, okay, and they actually go back also to the work of Sitchin, and they say he was misunderstood, and they basically blackballed him, not because he was wrong, but because he was right, as it happened.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so much there, and you can go and read it and watch their videos and decide whatever you want about it. But from my point of view, and I've been on this trail, arguably on a very sort of concentrated way since 2010. I am a remote viewer. I have remote viewed 3i Atlas. I also have, I've interviewed all the remote viewers, the well-known ones. I've interviewed Dick Allgaier and Daz Smith, and in their early days when they used to work for Courtney Brown, I know that they have military backgrounds. I know that they, there are a number of the remote viewers in Courtney Brown's group that their track records are impeccable, and they're proven. Okay. And they have looked at 3i Atlas and come to the same conclusions I have, strangely. So, and then, and I put it out there publicly. And Sebastian Martin is another intuitive who got employed on some level by the CIA. He remote viewed 3i Atlas. He came forward to say that his conclusions agreed with mine. Otherwise, I'd never know. And so on and so forth. So when you're going down this road, and if you know my saga with how I tapped into 3i Atlas by talking to David Sereda, this astronomer who's quite brilliant, and him telling me where it was stationed to go, and it's now parked alongside Jupiter, just sitting there. It never left our solar system. This is my understanding. Yet nobody's talking about it. Not one person. And this is another thing that happened to me. When 3i Atlas hit the sort of mainstream, it was in July, if you remember, June, July of 2025. Even though the scientists and others, of course, in the deep state, et cetera, knew about it much earlier, So it suddenly appeared in our solar system. And basically, David tracked its trajectory and did the mathematics, which are very sophisticated, on it, and came to the conclusion that it was from Nibiru, of all things, a hyperdimensional Nibiru, which is not what people understand planets to even be. So, and Richard Hoagland backed him up. Richard C. Hoagland, who is a very famous NASA scientist who has, written several books and so on and so forth. Highly regarded, okay? And David himself is highly regarded. So I ended up on these shows with David where it was just a revelation every time we talked. And he was giving me his side from the science side. And I was adding two and two together from my side and basically coming up with this information. That's amazing. So,
and I know you've been following the 3i Atlas for a long time. We talked about this in previous shows. And
I was absolutely, kind of obsessed with it really ever since I came across it in July of 2025. So now there's something going on. And now recently, Avi Loeb has been playing really for the dark side. Some people think he plays both sides. I think he's always tried to speak to the general public in somewhat of an honest way, but he's under big constraints, obviously, as one of their top scientists, supposedly. But the bottom line is that he's lied about Three Eye Atlas for months and months and months, because he can't be this stupid. We have to give him some credit as having intelligence, but he's under security oaths and all of that kind of thing. So it's understandable, but nonetheless, recently he just came out and he actually revealed something, and I don't remember what it is right off the bat. He has a Substack. I highly recommend that you go to it and you read all his prior ones and see. Sometimes it's so obvious he's working for the deep state. He is Israeli, which is totally convenient. In his background. And so guess who controls him? And I've been telling people that Israel is controlled by the Anunnaki I think people are sick of hearing me say that, but I've been saying this for so many years, and I have the evidence to back it up as well.
So you think they came out of World War II and it would just say, here, let's create the new Israel, and they're behind the scenes the whole entire time since we came out of the World War II scenario, because we restructured our planet, the war, right? Because of the way our perception, the human perception to where good versus evil changed.
A lot of things have changed over time. I mean, Tartaria, for example, who seems to have just kind of disappeared in plain sight. That some of it is still here and some of it is not. I mean, there is evidence that the Anunnaki knew about, in essence, the ice wall of Antarctica and talked about that. I mean, there's so much in this new documentation coming forward that it is going to change. Whether people like it or not, scientists like it or not, it's all changing, and it's going to change even more. So I think that it's really important that people start to realize that we're not going to be in a war with AI and negative AI and negative alien AI, as well as invader species that continue to invade, that we've been at war with behind the scenes, shooting down their craft and so on and so forth, as well as the Anunnaki, a certain portion of them. They may have a split. They may have some good Anunnaki and there may be some negative Anunnaki. I don't know the layout of their societies and exactly how they're organized. I just know they exist. I know a lot of revelations are coming out of this material, this Genesis
That's incredible stuff.
chamber. And from the tablets themselves, which, it's very hard to contest. If they're authentic tablets and they contain very detailed information, and they don't mince words. They don't beat around the bush. They don't give you, bullshit. They're like written very, very succinctly, very clearly. Such that we can read it so many thousand years later and understand what is being said. They don't tell you bullshit parables like, Adam met Eve in the garden.
I get you.
I mean, please. So this is sort of what's going on. Our world is changing, and everyone thinks that we're speeding along, but as I say, there are these portions of society that are being held back. And it is much to my dismay that in order to garner the sort of Israeli lobby and the Christians who are old school and maintain that voting sort of majority, whatever the hell it is, this group, that Trump and the White Hats to make sure they have the vote, tried to target that group, and that Juan was the one put in charge of that. To try to keep control of them and to keep them and their minds focused on the past. Which is actually it must be a torture for him, because at least the real Juan, and there are two Juans, and I've explained all of this and shown this. That the real one actually is a futurist. He grew up with, he said he collected sci-fi since he was a kid. He had a huge sci-fi library. I don't know if he has it anymore. And he's a total futurist, and Tesla is his idol. For him to have to sit out there with this sort of redneck demeanor, you know, overweight, a long beard like Santa Claus, the most ridiculous outfit in the world, and very few people realize it's a disguise. I mean, that blew me away. The first time I ever met him, I knew he was in disguise. I walked up to him and shook his hand or whatever, and I instantly knew. And the way my brain framed it is, there's something wrong with his face. That's the clearest thing that came through my mind. And I would never like to think that about anybody when I first meet them. Okay. I mean, I would like to think that, you know, whatever the person's face is, it's interesting or it's unusual or whatever it is, but I wouldn't think there's something wrong with it. But I did. And there's even a photograph of me at this cocktail party where I met him the first time. This is back in 2021. And I'm sitting on the couch like this. I'm literally stumped, because back then we didn't assume people wore masks and you wouldn't know it. You know, it was right around the time when, you know, Tom Cruise and Eddie Murphy had worn these masks in movies, and then they take them off. And, you know, but that seemed kind of part of a movie. Didn't seem like it was reality. I did investigations after that day and found out that it, you know, the CIA teaches you online about the masks. You can learn all about them. They are very, very convincing. And he wears a whole bodysuit mask, not just his head. It's insane. You know what I'm saying? So on top of it, he's got this act where he believes in this old Christian, horrible fundamentalist. In my view, I'm sorry, I'm prejudiced, but you know, after all my investigation, I'm prejudiced for the truth. And I understand this is going to make about half of the people watching this turn the attention to another channel, but I have to say it. I have to be clear. I have to tell you that this man has done a trajectory which is just amazing. If you know that he is JFK Jr., like, what did he go through to actually go into witness protection, to go into hiding with his wife and her sister, and to stay hidden all these years, and to try to protect his family because of the death threats. And to this day, he is now, for the first time, maybe you know this, at the, you know, you weren't at the Fraud Fighter Summit, right? I don't think I saw you.
I was
so it was not what I hoped. But at any rate, no, but he's on stage. Now you can watch videos of him on stage in this ridiculous Santa Claus outfit. It's insane. Okay. Not to mention uncomfortable to go through your life like this. It's just horrible, in my opinion. And he's an actor. He's a trained actor from a young age. He wanted to be an actor. His mother wanted him to be a lawyer. She got her way, but it turns out he's both. And it's probably served him very well. So this is a saga that people wouldn't believe if it didn't really happen. It's an amazing, you know, I don't know what you would call it, a wonderful sci-fi saga in and of itself, but it's the truth.
Well, I think there's a lot of components of nuggets, what you said, of why he's a so-called a figurehead right now, because it's easy to have 107 to come out and kind of be the mouthpiece without having a military uniform, right? But the other aspect of protecting and using the Christian principle and so forth, which, you know, I just for our audience here, the Red Pill audience, my opinion in regards to Christ consciousness in the way of the morality and the path, the Tao, if you will, of proper living of positive energy, I embrace that. However, if we're just going to tell little stories that people have rewritten and then worship as if it was God, that's wrong. That to me has never resonated. But one of the key factors that really came clearly when we were talking about this is that when we're dealing with why are we going the old way, is probably one of the things that jumps out clearly is that as what we've learned with the Galactic Federation, with interplanet travels and trading and food source, I don't think they want to give that up because we have been so enriching for the rest of the universe or intergalactic other so-called existence, that if we were to shut that down, that's like us taking out cow farming or pig farming on this planet. And I know that sounds crude, but at the same time, we have to really look at it. If we're having millions of people missing all the time, and we have already learned that there's intergalactic trades of human because of our creativity, because of our tenacity of capability of building things. And then the other aspect of it is we taste good to them. Why would them having the higher technology or having a deeper history of that want to give that up?
Well, of course they don't, but this is the trajectory that we're under. And,
I hope so.
William Tompkins, William Tompkins, who was an excellent whistleblower, came forward with the notion that NASA, for example, was run by two competing species. One is the reptilians and the other is the Pleiadians. And that humans were actually created initially by the Pleiadians, were related to the Pleiadians. We weren't not even on this planet, okay? But that we were supposed to be sort of the advanced brothers and sisters or cousins or whatever you want to call us of the Pleiadians to fight the good fight with their biggest enemy, which is the reptilians and Draco. It's no accident that that's their enemy, okay? It's no accident that we are trained to be warriors, which is part of our sort of psyche, if you will. So we were meant to be warriors on behalf of the Pleiadians, all right? And we still are. So when you look at that trajectory, if you look at how we're progressing, you're going to see that everyone out there, if you even watch movies for any period of time, realize what's the hero of the movie? It's a person with special powers, special athletic abilities, special, I don't know what gifts, whatever. This is integral to all the Hollywood movies. All right. So in a certain sense, and I know people don't get it sometimes, but you have to thank Hollywood because they have been educating you to become the best warrior you could in preparation for what's coming, which hasn't even completely emerged here, but is going on behind the scenes. We are shooting down alien craft. They're doing it every day in Iran. They've opened the Stargates in Iran, just like they did, Saddam did in Iraq. This is a huge problem. It actually goes back to Vietnam, according to Captain Mark Richards, one of my best whistleblowers, who behind me is Rebel Gene. But my two most recent books are based on his testimony that I went to the prison in person and took over a period of 5 years. So 12 interviews that go on for 2 hours or more at a stretch, all put into text so that you could get the book. And first I had 2 books and then I combined them into one. And I re-edited it because I found that I had editors, but they couldn't decipher like a lot of the things that were in there accurately enough to be able to. So I had to do the editing of the editor at the end. So now I have released my 2 set in a 1 volume, and it's available on Amazon. It gets 5 stars. It's a tremendous. It took me at least a year to do it, maybe more. So it was a tremendous amount of work. But on top of the video interviews that I did every time I went to interview him and the transcripts. So it's all that as well. And more. So just saying that, in the end, when the X-Files said the truth is out there, they weren't kidding. it
Right.
really is now out here.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to know, that's one thing. You can
Mhm.
just go hide your head in the sand.
Right.
At least for a while, that will protect you, perhaps.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
in the end of the day, we're all going down this road. You know,
Mm.
the earth and humanity are all going down this road.
Yeah.
And the role you play, whether you're a hero or, I don't know, a scaredy cat or whatever people want to terminology, you know,
Yeah.
people have families they want to protect. One of the problem with families is, and I understand this is controversial, but the bottom line is we're all souls.
Yes.
Those souls chose to accompany us here on earth to go through this transition, to
Mm.
take humanity out beyond the stars, and also to understand who we truly are, to discover our true nature
Yeah.
and where we came from, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
It's totally possible to do that now.
Mm.
And so I would encourage you to understand that regardless of what's happening to many children, and this, they are on a fucking line, a
Mm.
food line into these ships being transported off planet to colonies right now, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, they are used as food, as loosh, as, you know, it's horrible.
Yeah.
One part of humanity that has more Anunnaki and reptilian blood
Mm.
is now feeding on the other half. That's what we're witnessing.
Mhm.
When you understand the history, you understand what races messed with our DNA and put their DNA into ours.
Yeah.
You begin to understand why these things are happening. You know,
Yeah.
it's not just because someone went crazy one day. It's
Yeah.
actually built into our genome that
Yeah.
some of us are actually more or less a different race than the other half. Okay.
Mm.
And it's really almost that simple. Not
Yeah.
quite. It, you know, you can look at it that way if you want. There's no doubt there's a split in humanity.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's a lot to learn. I think it's a fascinating time to be alive. I'm very happy to be doing what I'm doing.
Yes.
And I still, you know, I'm still very excited by what I find.
Yeah. Yeah. I think you're on point. I can't thank you enough for coming on and share your wisdom and knowledge and just the overall take, because I really do believe you have a higher capability of intuition. I think you're very well connected spiritually. And these are key components that I want to share with the Red Pill family. You know, we're at a very interesting time of the planet as well as the human race. And it's extremely important for you guys out there who start to question opposed to just saying, oh, all this is just nonsense. If you feel this is absolutely not applicable and is nonsense, you just go about doing your business in life, that's you. But for those of us who question, you know, like myself, I've always questioned what kind of God would allow suffering? And I had that question since I was a little kid. And that has burned in me for a long time for me to be where I am today. And for any of you that feel that, I hope you take away from these type of interviews, especially, you know, the experience like Kerry, what you bring to the table, that, you know, to be able to get into meditation, to be able to get into connection to the source, to be able to get deeper into history that is not written just by the victors, but left for us to learn about ourselves. I think those are key important things. I just want to share one last thing to the audience here. When I got into channeling and got into my personal activation back about 30 some years ago, there was a lot of time that I dedicated to meditation and so forth. One of the things that was taught to me is that the consciousness and the energy of the universe never dissipates. It just constantly flows and it keeps going. Now, when we are here as human beings, we can be compartmentalized because of trauma or situations and abuse and assault, whatever it may be. And then we are then separated from the source. But once you break those paradigms and tear down the walls, what you will find is it's like ocean. It's a vast amount of ocean of of energy, information, knowledge, wealth of just understanding what's going on. So now, if you were to take this analogy, most of us get our so-called reality and information from the connection kind of like driving on a freeway. Some people are driving on 3-lane freeways, so you can only get so much traffic through, and some are driving 7, 8 lanes, these super highways. And it's just like grain pattern on wood, where your violin or piano, where it vibrates, is traveling through the so-called grain pattern. But once you start to get into enlightenment, once you start to understand self and you break these walls down, you realize that all of a sudden I have no lane. You become laser focused. It's like having a rope, and now you're going into the ocean, and you're going in the path of the rope any direction you want. And it's all energy, information, positiveness, and greatness that comes to you. Of course, where there's light, there's dark. Always remember that. But as you start to refine, the rope becomes the string, a thread. So now you're even more laser focused as you navigate through this vast amount of just abundance. And this is where I believe where you, Kerry, is connected, because I feel so strongly from it. Once I listen to you, or I listen to your work or read your work, then I go and reflect and I meditate and I come back and I realize certain things stays a certain way. And that's the truth. And I hope the Red Pill family embrace this, because this is like a technique. It's no different than martial arts, playing music instrument, being an athlete. You have to refine and develop your skill. And once you catch on to it and you start to go, oh, and there's an epiphany that opens up and you get it, right? Then that refinement just becomes polishing the ball. And I encourage everyone to do your research and start refining within self. So with that being said, we're coming up 90 minutes. Thank you so much, Kerry. What is your, give us a parting word in regards to what we should be paying attention to and what we should be looking at in current state of affairs.
Well, I think it's important when you're listening to the news, and whether the news comes from the White Hats, MAGA, or someone else, that you remain in sort of an observer mode over that information, not to get hooked in emotionally, even when they try to bring you in, say they're going to do a prayer, I have a different interpretation of the word prayer. I actually think prayer is the humans demanding of what they think of as their masters to do something. And so they spend all their time begging. It puts you in a less than position, subordinate position to God, to all that is, to the creator, to source, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. Prayer is not necessary for you to survive, okay, or for you to be spiritual, as far as I'm concerned. Prayer is what you do for yourself to keep yourself on track or whatever. But the point is that it's also secretly a kind of demand of the universe, basically telling the universe what you want it to do. But it is stupid in many ways, because the consciousness of everything knows exactly what you want, when you want it, and how you want it. So they don't need to hear this, begging, this constant begging murmur from humanity on their knees, okay, which is a form of worship, which is actually not even the Anunnaki couldn't stand it. I mean, but they generated it, apparently personality-wise. Anu wanted it, but it's absolutely unnecessary. Okay, so if it's really truly what we call a god, and most of what's out there is not on that level. Most of it is not enlightened. Most of it is not above and beyond what humans are. Anytime you hear a vindictive passage from the Bible, you have to know that's the Anunnaki. That is not the all that is. Okay. There's no way it is. When you find someone who wants vengeance, same thing. Vengeance is a lower urge. Okay. It's payback. It's full of all kinds of negativity. So when you start pulling this stuff apart, and hopefully you will, if you haven't already done this, then you're going to see that a lot of these things you were taught, bending your knees, bowing down, and it's in every culture. It's not just in, the Christian culture.
Yes.
These are ways of placating the gods, and it's all on the same road to sacrifice.
Yeah.
To sacrifice of children, etc.
Right.
All of this thinking is mistaken. It's wrong-headed. So in the end of the day, if you want to believe that you were created in the image of God, the real God, the creator, it's not because you look like him or her or whatever you want to say that is, which has not it's not a physicality anyway.
Yeah.
The point is that you have the ability to be equal to that. That's what it's telling you. Okay. That's what that's really saying. So you never need to bend a knee. That's what you do when you're the queen and you're bowing down to the top Satanists. Okay.
Yeah.
It's everywhere in our society. Yeah. You don't need to kiss ass. And one reason I never really climbed the ladder in Hollywood is that I refused to kiss ass.
Yeah.
It's that simple. That's part of every job. We have a top-down society. We have a society that's works on a hierarchical pecking order. Right. Every aspect of it is all put there by the Illuminati, by the Satanists. It's all Satanism. When you follow that road, you are a Satanist, whether you know it or not.
Yeah.
And you are paying, service to a dark god. Yeah. If you want to call that person a god, a Satan, or whatever you want to call him, all that stuff. So what I'm just saying here is that it's kind of like, back in the day when they said, oh, you can't use this pronoun and you can't use that pronoun and all that stuff, the woke people, right?
Yeah.
But they never got into the real meaning behind the programming, programming that goes on in our society every single day of everyone's lives.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
So those are my parting remarks.
Yeah. Fantastic take. And thank you so much for that, because I can't believe that in 2026 that now I start to really understand that how much Satanism and self-service that we've been conditioned to believe that is the right way of living.
Right.
And by us awakening from that is the very first step to really break MK Ultra. And I encourage everyone to explore it within deep itself and go that direction. Kerry Cassidy, you're the best. And thank you so much. Much love to you. And I hope you come back. Don't wait too long. And I know it's because of me. I had, a kind of a health issue. And I'm going to come on your show and I'm going to tell you the things that I've learned that is mind-blowing, because I didn't even know it existed.
Sure.
So thank you, Red Pill audience, in Conversation on the Fringe. Thank you so much for your support, everyone. And just remember, always like and subscribe, and don't forget to share. Sharing is key component for us to really infiltrate the consciousness, for us to be able to bring enlightenment, positive, and greatness to each other. And we need to take efforts to put that into our consciousness and in our efforts. When we do that, that is where fulfillment comes. That is where humanity is going to take a turn. And I hope you enjoy this. And again, thank you for tuning in. I'll see you on the next episode of Conversations on the Fringe. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to play us out, Kerry, so stay put. And here we go.
I don't have to tell you things are bad. Everybody knows things are bad.
The air is unfit to breathe, and our food is unfit to eat. I don't know what to do about the depression and the inflation. I want you to get mad.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubblegum.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
The more you fuck around, the more you're going to find out.
These people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy.
We accept the reality of the world with which we're presented. It's as simple as that.
I want you to get up right now and go to the window, open it, and stick your head out and yell, I'm as mad as hell, and I'm not going to take this anymore!